Welcome everyone to the Eastside Freedom Library. I'm Peter, one of the two founding co-directors, and back here is my partner Beth Cleary, the other founding co-director. In June, we will have been here 5 years, and I understand there are some of you here for whom this was a childhood library. That's great. Welcome, welcome. And maybe we can talk more before you go. So this was built as one of 3 Carnegie libraries here in St. Paul, built in 1917 at a time when the public library was shifting from being one main downtown library to being a series of neighborhood libraries. And money was leveraged from the Carnegie Foundation. As a labor historian, I always like to say this building was paid for by the blood, sweat, and bodies and labor of immigrant iron miners, steel workers, and coal miners who made Andrew Carnegie a rich man and ultimately a philanthropist. So I always like to thank the workers for having built this building. There are bathrooms downstairs. There are books for sale in the back. We have a guest book I hope that you've signed. There are lots of activities going on here, other events coming up. Please take a look at the flyers and please come back. This event tonight we're doing in partnership with the Ramsey County Historical Society, and Robin Priestley is here representing the Ramsey County folks, and she's got a little bit to say, and we really appreciate that we're able to work with them. We're going to do at least one event a month jointly with the Ramsey County Historical Society. So this is one of those events. So, Robin.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate that. And we love being a partnership with the Eastside Freedom Library and being able to have events in this wonderful library. These programs are made possible by our members of the Ramsey County Historical Society. So if you are a member, I want to thank you very much. I know there's some members in the audience. If you're not a member and you're interested, either Meredith, our wonderful editor, or I can help you after the program. One of the membership benefits, in addition to helping programs like this, is that you also receive our award-winning quarterly Ramsey County History magazine, and you also get free admission to our historic site, Gibbs Farm, up on Larpenteur and Cleveland, but we have all the details in the back. We also have a list of upcoming programs, which we are doing at various sites throughout Ramsey County, including this one, and that's in the back, but I want to make you aware of a couple things that are coming up really quickly. This Thursday at 7:45 p.m., Eric Dregney will be talking at the Waldman's Brewery and Worstery over on Smith Avenue about his book, which is called Let's Go Fishing, and it's hysterical. It's anecdotes, history, old postcards, photos, what have you, about fishing in Minnesota. And since this weekend is fishing opener, we thought it would be appropriate. So again, that's at Waldman's Brewery. Attendance is limited, so if you'd like to go to that, again, see Meredith or I in the back. Then on May 23rd, which is Thursday at 7 o'clock, Frank White, who some of you may know, will be talking about black baseball and the Rondo neighborhood. He recently wrote a book about African-American baseball players in Minnesota. It's a great book. So he'll be coming to talk about that. That's at the Roseville Library at 7 o'clock on Thursday, May 23rd. Then Peter will be leading a very special walking tour, an immigration walking tour, on Saturday, June 15th in the morning. So if you're interested in that, again, please see Meredith or I or talk to Peter and we'll get you signed up for that. So again, if you have any questions about any of our events, you can check our website, and there's a handout in the back. So we've talked enough. I want to turn it over to Mr. Carter, Mr. Anderson. Real quick background. We'll hear more from Melvin Carter, who grew up in Rondo and served as an officer in the St. Paul Police Department for 28 years. And these experiences will be what we'll be talking about tonight, and they're in his book. And he is the founder and executive director of Save Our Sons. Marvin Roger Anderson was raised in St. Paul's Rondo neighborhood also, and then he left to attend Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, and then received his JD from Hastings College of Law in San Francisco. And then he also served in the Peace Corps, became an ordinance drafter for the City of Minneapolis Department of Civil Rights, before going back and earning his Master of Arts from the University of Minnesota School of Library Science. He was appointed state law librarian in 1980, and as a state law librarian, his tenure spanned 22 years and included many accomplishments, including the very special Everybody Wins reading program, which paired volunteer legal practitioners with elementary school students to encourage a love for reading. He is also the founder of Rondo Avenue, Inc., and the chairman of the board of Reconnect Rondo. So I'm going to turn the microphone over to them, and thank you both very much for being here.
Thank you so much. How many of you have read Diesel Heart? Just show of hands. Right, three. Well, for those of you who have read Diesel Heart, we're going to go over some of the things that you remember from the book with a little bit more emphasis. And for those of you that haven't read Diesel Heart, you're in for a treat. A rock, sock, pulsating, merry-go-round, jet plane type of book written by a son of Rondo. And it's a pleasure for me to be asked to interview Melvin. And that's because I knew his father, and I knew his mother, and I know his sons and his family. Just very briefly, in 1981, a good friend of mine, Floyd Smaller, who was a coach at Central High School for 35 years, we started a little organization called Rondo Avenue, Inc. And we sponsor the annual Rondo Days Parade, the Rondo Days Festival. And this July will be 36 years that festival has been going on. And when we started it in 1980, we had our first meeting. We were looking for a secretary, somebody to keep us honest and keep us going. Melvin's mother, Billy Carter, became our very first secretary for Rondo Avenue, Inc., and stayed with us for I don't know how many years. And when we wanted to have some entertainment, we had the idea that we should go to different places and we should entertain people before we told them about the Rondo Day Festival to get their attention. And the first thing she said, Mel would do it, my husband. So he was forced to play for us, Melvin's father. So the connection between Melvin and I started in 1980, but reading your book, Melvin, I see that our connection in Rondo goes back many, many, many years, because some of the things that I did growing up, I see they've been repeated in your life. You had a Skeeter. I had a Pookie. You had a Pit Bull. I had a Big Head Benny. You had a nickname.
Baby brother.
Baby brother. I had a Sister Pookie. Got another one?
Probably.
You got a Skeeter. You got a Nez. You got a Skinny. You got a Geech.
Okay, yeah.
You got a Muck. You got a Riot. And you got a Pit Bull.
Yeah.
People that you grew up and they sound just like the people that I grew up with.
History
in this room.
repeats itself.
History repeats itself. But for those of you that don't know, tell us a little bit about Melvin Carter. Who he is, who's the man. Tell us just very briefly about.
Did I get a mic?
Yeah, here it is right here.
Go ahead.
Well, I was born on Rondo. Rondo was on my birth certificate, as is my brother. Hi, Matt. By the way, my brother Matt. He was born now. The house we were born into is on one of these pages here, and also Mr. Bransford. He was one who reminds me that my family, if I'm correct, was one of the first families to have a TV on Rondo. Am I correct, Mr. Bransford? You guys just come over and watch the Friday night fights or something like that? Yeah, so anyway, I was kind of a crazy mixed up kid. I was probably least likely to amount to anything. My grandmother, my mother's mother would look at me and say, that child is our boy. And my mother would cry because she said, no, that boy got a death wish. And my dad would have the solution. He said, no, the boy just doesn't have good sense. And that was baffling to me because if you don't have good sense, and you knew it exists, and you want some, how do you pursue it? And how do you know what it is when you get there, if you ever get there? And so it's a story about a backwards kid who grew up with every issue, syndrome, and complex, more than Lifetime magazine and Playboy magazine put together. And how do you stumble in this world and be most likely to wind up in disaster and not just survive, but amount to something? And so I struggled. I grew up tough, and you might recognize this. I learned to fight before I was 6. That was the only way I could get along. But when you lived on the street I lived on, you had to be tough and strong. And all the boys I ran with was getting in trouble. That's how it's always been. But when the odds are all against you, you got to know how to win. And you got to recognize what winning is, because you might not even know. And so I grew up, and I'm the only student in the history of all academics that ever had to repeat 2nd and 3rd grade back to back. Seriously. And I'd like to be a fly on the wall, because when they had to decide that, and guess what? You know why they continuously flunk me? Just because I couldn't read or write. Now what up with that? So one day my mother decided. My mother was the only person who realized that I wasn't completely. In those days they used the word retarded and dumb, and the teachers would say, "Mr. Carter, your son isn't exactly dumb, you know." And so I really think the fact that they made me repeat the grade meant that they saw something in me. So I was like in 5th grade, and my mother was like 8 months and 3 weeks pregnant with our baby brother, Larry. And so I had done something ridiculously stupid, whatever it was probably something I don't want to remember. And so my mother had to walk to school. My dad was like out of town or on the road or something like that. So I had to walk to school with my mother and walk up to the convent, St. Peter Claver, to answer to the teacher. And so we get there, and they shut the door, and it's kind of a come to Jesus kind of thing, and the nun starts, "Mrs. Carter, your son this, Mrs. Carter, and your son that, Mrs. Carter, your son stuff." And this was like November. And my mother said, "Sister, it's only November. You've only had him like 2 months." How do you think I feel? Yeah. And so they started laughing and crying at the same time. They bonded. They wound up hugging and crying and wiping each other's eyes, you know. And so there I was. I was kind of St. Paul Dennis the Menace. And so I somehow managed to grow up, went up to Citro, and I had a pit bull who was a guy who just decided I was his enemy. He didn't like me and made me have to fight him a few times. And I had to combat my issues, my anger. I had anger issues, academic issues, syndromes, complexes. I probably had the entire alphabet: A, D, D, A, D, H, D, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. All the way up to right now, I have been recently diagnosed with PTSD. Because, just fast forward, and I'm giving it back, you reach for the mic. But, you know, I did like 30 years on St. Paul Police Department. I did like 15 of those years on patrol. About 3 of those years were on the SWAT team, and I was on the entry team. I was lead man on the entry team, and that got old, and so I decided to be a sniper on the police department, and got through that. And then I was a detective, so some of the stuff as you read it will get kind of brutal. And so anyway, I do want to have a good conversation with us, and some of this, as people say, is raw, and I don't want to talk about some tough stuff without thinking about, we want to come in peace and think about reconciliation. But so I do apologize to everybody in advance that I'm about to offend.
You made a comment that having repeated the 2nd grade and the 3rd grade, you might have some educational qualifications. So what part of the education that you had with the sisters, can you say something very quickly about the St. Peter Claver School, and what educational not necessarily in A's and B's in grades, but what life education things did you learn from the sisters there and basically in Rondo?
Well, you know, those days they could spank you, and so I probably got the record. I probably held the record in getting spankings. You know, and I'm not mad at anybody. I don't feel at all abused because I had a hard head and a hard behind. You know, so that worked out well. But the nuns, boy, they were nice if you were nice, but they were no nonsense, and thinking was mandatory. You know, you just couldn't come with them any old stuff because they see you coming and see, you know, whatever you're bringing before. So they really have to make you think a lot deeper, and then when they hold you accountable, hold you responsible. But I do have to say this before I return the mic over. And that is that my mother sat me down after I had just flunked the 3rd grade, and it was destined that I would repeat it again. She sat me down, broke out a bunch of books, because I was the best daydreamer, and I could look out the window, you know, and a bird would fly, and somebody would open up the book, and I'd go, ooh, bird, ooh, look at that cloud, it looks just like a pirate, or a ship, or a giraffe, you know. And so she opened up a whole bunch of books, and she set me down, and she said, now son, I'll read this, and sound out the word, and then she'd give me some homework, and go in your bedroom, wouldn't let me outside, because I love to be outside, wouldn't let me go until I read some books, and she would have me sign it out, and she'd go in the room and memorize the timetables and come out, and I'm trying to get outside, and so this went on for like 4 weeks, and Fatso and the guys were outside waiting for me, you know, come on out, man, and you know, but sometime, because in Minnesota you got to snag that summertime, because if you don't, it's gone, and so I'm trying to get out, and everywhere I looked, my mother's face would appear, you know, I tried, she would, look at me, boy, she said, boy, look at me, boy, and she would make me, okay, now sound the word out, now sound the consonant out, now put the words together, and pretty soon I'm going like, hey, you know. And then she's going, and now, how much is, you know, put together the dividing and the timetables and stuff, and she'd say, now carry the 2 and whatever it was, and pretty soon, I looked at Mom, I can learn. And she smiled at me after like 4 weeks and said, you go outside now. Bang, I hit that door. But she had demystified academia for me, and that was a turning point for me.
You had the great pleasure of your family of growing up right in the heart of Rondo there, right at a house, nice Victorian house, and there's a beautiful picture of your family home right there in Rondo. And that was the home that was taken for the freeway, and I've heard you say my bedroom was right there in the middle of the freeway. And for those who remember Rondo, like myself, and those who have had the opportunity to remember that, there was a certain devastation about it, a certain longingness about Rondo, that they wonder why we still celebrate Rondo, what Rondo means to us, and why we've been thinking about it for the last 36 years, actually 50 years. What does Rondo mean to you in terms of your family history and what you remember about living there and then having to lose your home in Rondo?
You remember that Diana Ross song, When I Think of Home? Remember that? I'd sing it for you, but you know, you're being too respectful. I don't want to lose you. But I think of all those things that Diana Ross thought of. But I do want to point out that when you look at the picture of my dad's house that I was born into, he also owned that little barber shop next door where he owned that barber shop and the Elks next door. So there were 2 buildings that got taken from my dad. And my son, you know, he has like almost a dozen deeds that had Carter's names on it. And so according to what Yusef Mjini says, we were given like what they call salvage value on the house, and I wouldn't know what that would be, but it wasn't the value that it should have been, that would have had it been in other neighborhoods. But for me, it knocked out an empire. You know, kind of like a sacred, holistic bubble existed over us, you know, where everybody watched out for everybody, and everyone kind of knew each other, and the older kids watched over the little kids, and everybody knew when somebody was getting a new pair of shoes, Everybody knew whose bike belonged to who. You know, everybody, if you saw a dog running down the street, you knew the dog went. But how many buildings, how many businesses were there?
There were almost 1,000 homes that were lost in Rondo, from Rice to Oxford. And there were at least 157 businesses that were destroyed right there. And that memory of Rondo has such a poignant meaning for so many of us, because the idea that coming through Rondo, when there was an alternate route, the northern route, which was one of the reasons that I think the anger and the hurt and the resentment against the city and the state was carried for so long. But we carry a lot of pleasant memories of Rondo, or vivid memories of Rondo, and I imagine you have a memory of Rondo that you like to keep. Could you tell us about it?
Well, I remember Christmas, my mom and dad making a snowman out in front and going down the basement, getting real charcoal and making eyes and getting some twigs and making some arms and stuff like that. But you know, Skeeter, you know the prices, didn't you? And they lived directly across the street. And Skeeter was my first best friend. He was the youngest person in his family, and I'm the oldest boy in my family, so we kind of connected. He was like a year or two older than me. And Skeeter was a great storyteller. You never knew when he's putting you on or telling you the truth. And we loved to catch bugs and spiders and, you know, whatever, anything that flew and crawled. And so we were chasing butterflies one day, and Skeeter said, "Big brother, a big old street's going come down here, it's going to wipe out your house, but my house won't get to stay." And he was telling the truth because he lived directly across the street. Now imagine a person who's only seen little tiny streets, because Rondo wasn't that big of a street. It wasn't, but it was big for then, in those days. But imagine being 7 years old and trying to imagine a street so wide that's going to go wipe out a whole from Rondo to St. Anthony. Skeeter told me some stories before, but nah, man. That's like telling me a big old asteroid's going to come and hit Earth, but you know, everybody else, I'm going to get to stay. You know, no, man, it done went too far this time. And so it came to pass, and I never will forget the good day. I think we were coming. Remember when the circus was down on St. Anthony? Was it St. Anthony? In tents, and we'd come from there, and we came to the door, and I saw my mama's balloon just go up in the sky, and somebody dropped something, and there was a signpost on the door that said, "Condemned," you know. And so, I mean, whatever. I wasn't sure what that meant, but I thought it could be anything good. So anyway, time passed, and we moved, and you know, what I wanted to tell you in the first place was that there was no screen doors. I mean, everybody had screen doors. No such thing as air conditioning in those days. So when you passed people's house in the summertime, you knew what they was cooking because you could smell it. You hear what music they were listening to because you could hear it. And people were playing their own music. All the houses, like down the street, had like pianos and guitars and stuff, you know. So you'd hear all kinds of genres of music going up and down the street. And I remember after we moved off the street, there was a lot of vacant houses. And I remember feeling much like it was ancient ruins of a great civilization gone by with the music gone. And with the fragrances gone, you know. And so I'm a fast forward, but the one thing I think I want to share with you is that we had moved over to 1026 Aurora. My grandmother was babysitting, and it was a real nice day. The occasion was festive. We were watching the news, and the fire department, St. Paul Fire Department, was having some fire training, and in order to train the fire department, they set 717 Rondo on fire. And my grandmother, my grandmother was about the age I am now, you know, and see now, you know, you think in terms of hopefully leaving some wealth to your children. And my grandmother, I saw them tears trickle down. She said, "Wow, we're wishing we could save that house." And you know, right now, I mean, if you're my age and you don't have something to hand down to your kids, and it just goes up in flames, you know, it's gone. But to her, they were burning up her legacy, you know, something that my father's ancestors, elders, had sought to pass down, You know, and I believe that was it felt like it was an insult on the injury to watch our house home burn up. And so anytime you get off on, you're going eastbound on I-94, you get off on Dale Street, you just went through my natural habitat.
The people who lost those homes in Rondo, almost 1,000 people, they had the difficulty moving outside of Rondo. At that time, there were restrictions on Negroes, as they were called, getting rents in other parts of the city. But your family was able to stay within Rondo, I think. And
Moved over in Aurora, 1026 Aurora.
right, so right there, right near Lexington there.
Yeah, near Lexington and just off of, just south of University Avenue.
And then finally on Rondo, before we move on, growing up in Rondo, we always had a thing the guys did on a Friday night. So that was whatever you were doing, if you were setting pins at St. Peter Flavor at the bowling alley, if you were washing cars or if you were cutting grass, Friday night you would get ready and you would go home and you would put on a pair of jeans or something, and then you would walk up to the avenue. And then there was always a sharp dresser, there was always a car, there was a jump.
Jump, yeah, I remember that.
Remember those? So what did you guys do on Friday night, your generation?
First of all, if you could go to a party unless you had a band line. Remember the band line? Anybody know what a band line was? Ronnie, you remember the band line? If you was black, you remember the band line?
No, I don't remember that.
Yeah, huh? A band line shirt. Yeah. That was a shirt you just had to have, and just what, if you didn't have a band line, you just wasn't going out, you know. And so, you know, we'd have house parties, and that'd be about it. And then, you know, there was a place that opened up over in Minneapolis called Mr. Lucky's. And Mr. Lucky's was a place kind of like a social place for people underage, and we'd go there and do some serious socializing and do the boogaloo. Anybody remember the boogaloo? Yeah, and things like that. But the band line was a pullover shirt, and I don't know who decides what's in, but somewhere in decided. But I just want to linger for a minute. One thing is, and I do want to apologize for what I said, but we never crossed University. University was off limits. Somebody decided that, and if you went on up Rice Street, you count on an ass whooping, or some such thing. You know, you could fight. You had to handle your business, and every now and then we take our lives into our own hands and cross University. I don't know if it was written. I don't know if it was whoever said it, but remember we didn't cross University. No. Yeah. So one time, me and the fellow, we decided we're going to cross University. You ready? Who's in? Who's in? You know, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to start like at ground. We're going to go straight due north until something happens. You know? And so we take our lives into our own hands. We jumped on our bikes. And those balloon bikes you used to get from Montgomery Wards, they go fat that. And so anyway, we go due north and we make it like to Sherburne and nothing happened. Make it almost up to Thomas and nothing happened. Make it up to like Minnehaha and something happened. Nothing happened. And so we're getting bold, and pretty soon, but this started happening like in the evening, and pretty soon the sun started going down. That's why, oh shit. oh hell no. And so everybody jumped on the back. And guess what? Guess we had a blow up. And you would think my homies would wait for me or something, wouldn't you? I'm like, I look up, my buddies are gone. I'm like, hey, you guys come in. And so it starts getting dark and everything, you know, and pretty soon you hear dogs howling, and I was going, and I just knew something was going to jump out the bushes and grab me. I know what it was, but I knew it was coming. So I'm crying, and I wasn't above watching my mommy as long as nobody was looking, you know. And so I'm walking my bike, and I make it back as far as like to Thomas coming back now due south. Gravel, nothing happened. Whatever it was, it didn't happen. And I walked a couple more blocks, and I made it about the ship, and pretty soon I could see University in sight. You know, make it. And then just as I got about a block away from university, I came upon some smoke coming out of somebody's backyard. It was a father and son, a white family, and they were making hamburgers and Kool-Aid. And so they gave me hamburgers and Kool-Aid and fixed my flat tire. And I lived happily ever after. Give me a round of applause.
They bring back many memories about the dividing line. In fact, when we grew up, the Korean War had just gotten over, like in the 51s, and we called it the DMZ, the demilitarized. You could go over there during the day, but you couldn't go up Rice Street, and you really couldn't go across University, and you could get over to the west side from time to get a neighborhood house, but there were these little pockets of St. Paul that were kind of off limits, but like you would always expand and try to go to other places and expand your horizon, but that's another memory that we share as well. And I think that those who haven't read the book, you should read that first, those chapters that Melvin has written about his family and growing up in Rondo. They were just brought back so many memories and tell the story in such vivid manner that it's a real pleasure. You really captured the essence of Rondo and what it was like to grow up in Rondo, and how that magic of Rondo, when the freeway came through, it really took apart something that was special. The music, as you say, the food, the rhythm, the dance, the songs. And I think you called it the signatures. I like the way you said it was a different key when Rondo was gone. It was a different melody that everybody had to learn to play. So let's kind of move on. One last question. What do you think of Rondo today? That's the last question on Rondo.
I think Rondo is a legacy that sets the pace, sets the stage and the standard for what we would like all St. Paul to be.
So, when did you first realize that you wanted to be a writer?
Well,
much of my story happens in a place called Bouknadel, Morocco, North Africa, during the Vietnam era, and I had strategically put myself in a predicament not to have to go to combat. And, but I went over to Morocco, one person, and came back another person. I went over there and found Dieselheart, and in the process, it was kind of rough. It was kind of heartbreaking. It was earth-shaking, and I really had to challenge myself. I was challenged to the core of my being, I remember one occasion. Can't tell a little story.
sure.
This is dumb. And this is one of the things I gotta apologize for in advance because it's inappropriate and it's wrong. Man, please tell this story. But anybody ever felt all alone? I'm thinking, man, how in the world did I wind up in this godforsaken place of all places, in the desert? And I felt, remember that food your mom and dad used to make you eat when you're sitting at the table and you couldn't get up? Oh, I wanted that stuff back so bad. I want my mommy, and so anyway, I was frightfully, in a place, in a very dangerous place, and I felt just so absolutely, indescribably otherized. And so I'm sitting at the table, and I'm feeling like life had handed me this script of absolute nobodiness. And so I'm sitting at this table in the mess hall, and I'm saying, pass the salt. And nobody would pass me the salt. Now, don't forget I got issues, And so I'm sitting there, and I say it again, and everybody just keeps on talking. You mean to tell me I'm not worth people passing me though? And I used some adjectives there. So, and so, everything just converged on my feelings at the same time. And I know that I'm about to cry like a boo-hoo baby, like I'm talking about snot crying. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And so I was supposed to be a U.S. fighting man. I'm supposed to be tough, and I didn't want all these guys, and I didn't want them to know that something so stupid hurt my, just got me. And so I was racing out the door fast as I could. And I make it outside, and I just blurred out. I just lose it. I imagine I had liquids coming out my eyes, my nostrils, my ears, and everything. And I'm crying to God, and I'm praying to God, and I'm praying in the direction of a tree, and I'm going, and I'm blah, 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 blah. And I'm really losing it and venting as well. And I'm asking God, am I going to survive this? Let me know if I'm going to survive this. But I'm not elevating my voice now like I was doing that, because I was out in a kind of outside, kind of in a desert / partial forest. And so I'm thinking nobody's here, but I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. And I'm asking God, just show me if I'm going to make it. If I'm not going to make it, I accept your will. Just give me the sign. Give me the sign. And all of a sudden, and I promise you by our sake, that's sacred, I'm telling you the absolute truth, a big gust of wind came out the clear blue sky, and a big old limb off a tree just crashed down and hit the ground so big that if it was a man, it had killed him. And I was saying, that looked like a sign to me. and so I give one of these things. And I marched back in there. You know what I said? Give me that fucking saw! I apologize for that. That was inappropriate, but you guys gave me permission. I got high blood pressure.
You should probably preface that. That was in the Navy.
That was in the Navy, yeah, Morocco, yeah.
So I think.
Oh, I didn't answer your question.
No, don't worry about that. Because there was something that happened that was more important. When you came through Rondo, you got to Rondo, you got through Central High School. You graduated, you finally made it to Central High School. You did some work, and after I graduated from high school, the summer job was at Whirlpool.
I worked there too.
And I couldn't stand it.
Me neither.
I wasn't decided. I knew right then that I had to go to college or do something else because
Hated it.
that Whirlpool job.
Yeah.
That was one job that, my first job in industry, I was on vacuum cleaners. And
Doing dishwashers.
you had to jump in and do the,
So I'd have to get in
I
there.
had to get in there, they gave you a sledgehammer. You had to jump in a freezer. And you had to put steel wool in there. Then you had to jump out. And the thing just kept going.
One a minute.
One a minute. And I said, this is not for me. And I said, well, and you said the same thing. I went away, then you joined the Navy. But before you joined the Navy, you called something in your book that I thought was very powerful. You called it turning points. And I guess it was the death of some good friends of yours.
Well, I want to answer your question. So I was writing letters home when I was from the Navy, and my mother would say, Melvin, you're a good writer. So that answers your first question. One of the first turning point was I'm one of a group of guys who was either, my dearest friends were like either criminals or Black Panthers or both. And so when I was like 16, I was trying to talk my buddies into not breaking into a house, and I failed to do that. And so I went in the house with next door to Rita's Fletcher, where Rita lived down there on Central. And so I go in there and with them, as just to not be a chicken. And so we're coming out. You guys remember those old stereos that were like in an oak kind of a casing with the TV in them, with the stereo and all those things. So me and Victor Jones.
We're coming out the door with this here. Oh. And it ain't like we had a truck or something outside. and so we go back door, and all of a sudden, I see myself, now, Melvin, explain this to your mom, explain this to your dad, and explain it to yourself while you're at it. And so I'm going, huh? And so the turning point, we're at the back door, and I just couldn't explain this one. I couldn't explain it to me. And so I did release names. I didn't explain nothing to anybody, I owe nobody explanation. And so I read, but my house I lived in at 1065 Dayton at that time was probably directly due south, but I ran kind of about half a mile that way, and I'm diving over fences. Run through alleys and jump in the bushes and get kind of a horseshoe kind of thing, come on home and shut the door. And so the point that's so important because I was no longer one of the fellas anymore. I was kind of ousted out of the club. They had made their decision and I made mine. And that was a very significant turning point. Ronnie Reed still doing life sentence. He's one of my best friends in life. I was kind of self-appointed bodyguard of him. And John Griffin did 2 life sentences and he's out now. And everybody went to prison. But by the grace of God, go I.
So you joined in the U.S. Navy, and then your book talks about boot camp, and your book talks about getting sent to Morocco, and then your book kind of deals with what I would consider to be some of the more authentic and sad and maddening racism between the members of the armed forces.
Mm-hmm.
And how they would treat you and how they would deny you a chance to, you were sent over there as an electrician,
Mm-hmm.
and you wound up spending all of your time in the mess hall. It wouldn't give you a chance.
Right.
You would teach other people the job and they would take it. They wouldn't give you any promotions, but you found a way to handle some of that aggression that you were feeling. And how did you do that with your...
Yeah, well, you guys remember go back old television back in the early 50s, and there was always somebody, a black guy on the name Lightning, he was scared of a shadow. Remember that? And there was a black guy, they would allocate black guys in those days, so as soon as one day this time, they sent another black guy there. So I was replacing this guy. His real name was Lyle or something. He was a nice guy, but they called him Lightning. In the way, and they treated him like a pet puppy, and I remember somebody going, "Hi, Lightning, you black bastard," like, and so when I get there, Lightning's leaving, they said, "No, we're gonna call you Lightning and say."
Did you light him up?
Not then. And I said, "Oh, Blinky, Blink, Tom Blink, you ain't gonna call me that, and don't never say that to me ever again." And so that kind of set the point, I mean, they could only accept me as a Lightning, and so I thought, well, whoever comes after me, he ain't gonna be Lightning the third. They're gonna be very particular about how they talk to him. And so because of that, I wound up doing serious. You're only supposed to do mess duty once a month, and it's a filthy job. You got to be there at 4, and you don't get off till like 7 or 8 in the evening, and that's 7 days a week. And so you're supposed to do that kind of as a initiation kind of thing. But I wound up doing it like 3 months, and the guys that should have done it, I did it theirs. And so they went on and learned the trade, and I was struggling for a morsel of human dignity more than anything, and I felt extremely otherized, and I felt extremely attacked, and my issues probably didn't help. Is that Superman?
Yes.
It's a bird, it's a plane. It's Superman. He's one of my best mentees. Give him a hand, please. But so anyway, I was there for 20 months, and keep in mind, in those days, the only contact you had with home, because you didn't have any thing in English, no music, anything other than the records that you'd get, because fortunately, thank God, Aretha was over there recording something all the time. But the only contact you had with home would be letters, and the postman, we'd follow the postman around like a puppy, as though he could give us some mail, and you get mail like maybe twice, maybe 3 times a month. And boy, you get a letter, you turn it upside down and read it, and turn it backwards, read it, and smell it, and taste it, And what was the question?
Just some of your experiences And then it wasn't all that bad because you made a lifelong friend over there.
Yeah.
Huff.
Yes.
And he's over here in Minnesota now.
Yes.
But Jerry, in the book, your experiences in Morocco, I think they were
All over the place.
all over the place. They were, when I was in Peace Corps, I went to Morocco, so I know exactly what it was like. And then the other thing that we share, you went AWOL in Morocco?
Spain.
Spain. Well, I went AWOL in Morocco from the Peace Corps.
All right.
So I remember that as well. And then after you left, you did how much time did you do in the Navy then?
About 25 months.
Okay, then you came back to Minnesota.
Yes, sir.
And then your book then takes off and describes coming back to Minnesota and not really having a career path that way. You got into music because you retained that great musical legacy of your father's, the trumpet. And talk just a minute about, before we be going to the police academy, what it was like to learn that music and to play with your brothers and Purple Haze and some of the music of that era.
Well, my brother Mark, who's up in heaven now, he played with Purple Haze. He was playing with Purple Haze when I got back, and I wound up playing with some guys, a band out of Omaha, Nebraska. They call themselves the Show Pushers, and they were talented people. You know, they really are, spectacularly so. And so, but my brother Mark he was the real musician, and I think one of the reasons I got to travel with them was because I came with my brother Marcus, and I had a little leverage that way. But we got a chance to kind of tour the country, and we got a chance to gig with Jackie Wilson. Somebody know who that was? Anybody remember Curtis Mayfield? And one of my claims to fame, and some of you probably might not know who the Whisperers were. Anybody know who the Whisperers? They actually invited me to join them. That's my claim to fame. The reason I didn't, because I really knew I wasn't that good, you know. But I could act like I was good, you know. I could act like I could act as though I could really play. And then when I was playing, I was acting like I was really playing. And when I was done, I acted like I could act as though I really had played something. You know. But anyway, but it was really a wonderful experience for me. Who else? I can name drop a couple more times. But we got a chance to play some backwoods, something similar. Anybody know the term Chitlin Circuit? We played the Chitlin Circuit. We played some places, boy, that we played one place way in the backwoods, someplace where they had a little hole in the floor where they was catching catfish and cooking it right there. You know, they was charging you like, Lord, what? I forget how much per catfish, but it was backwoods, you know. We had some time. I went to jail I got arrested in Atlanta, Georgia for something dumb. Remember the song, Mr. Big Stuff? Who do you think you are? Well, we had gigged with her that night. We'd opened up for her, and we're sitting at this, you know, with the doors open like 2 in the morning, arguing about whether she was any good or not. Disturbing the peace, and it got me heated. People cussing each other out, you know. We're 20, so, and next thing the police would come in there and grab us for disturbing the peace, and I stayed in jail. Me and my brother Mark, our other brother, it was we spent like 4 hours in jail, and it didn't take much of that long for me to find I wasn't fit for captivity.
So after the service, your book says you did over 100,000 miles in gigs at one point. And I like the point where you said there was a young man named Prince came to listen to you guys play one day and maybe took some of your stuff.
He stole our stuff.
Stole your stuff. Wherever he is, I think he's trying to do the old Melvin Carter spin. And then that was like another 2 years or so, and then all of a sudden, I guess, a good friend of yours, Corky Finney, found you on the street and...
Him and Jimmy Mann and Chief Griffin, you know, I'm walking down the street, you know, because keep in mind, my best friends we were all trouble, and I was endangered species extremely. But some of my endangerment was self-inflicted, self-induced. But I'm going down the street, smoking something, trying to handle business. And all of a sudden, you know, it's like, keep in mind, it's late at night, and all of a sudden, poof, these police lights come on, and Carter, what? You know. Carter, there's been a class action lawsuit against the St. Paul Police Department. They have to hire some black officers. And why don't you come and sign? Oh, blankety blank, do the blank. You know, that was defying all that. I had no. I mean, that had been a complete turnaround. But I was working at Honeywell at that time. I was absolutely not getting any satisfaction from that. And so anyway, but as time passes, fortunately, you know, they had trouble recruiting some of the right people. And they kept the application process open for like some crazy amount of time. And time went on, and I was getting less and less satisfaction from working peace parts, arguing about some I just give a damn about, you know, and trying to act like, you know, this shit was important. And so then one night I was volunteering over at Hattie Q. Brown, and some youth had attacked a senior citizen. And I'm not sure exactly why that kept me up all night, but it tossed me around in bed. Do you ever have those things that just kind of, you know, you toss around all night? And when I got up the next morning, you know, I said, I'm gonna go put in this application. So I checked in, there was like 3 days left. 3 days left to go to, well, I was taking the application, got it just in time, and I called, remember Ron Jones? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he was, you know, they were recruiting. And so I got my application in. So it came to pass that I got into the police academy, and the police academy consisted of 43 new people, 43 or 42. And I do some reverse bragging. Remember I bragged about being the only one who had to repeat second and third grade? Well, here, I was the absolute last person to be hired. Absolute stone last, you know. And the only reason I was able to pass high enough to be absolute last was because I had veterans preference, which I almost didn't get because I barely got an honorable discharge, you know. so anyway, next thing you know, I'm sitting in, as I say this, you know, I can see everybody wondering, what's your black ass doing up in here? You know, like, and so anyway, just to get me out of here and give me back to Mike, you had to have 80%. You had to carry an 80% average, or else you're out of here. And I could feel they were really trying to they're really trying to flunk us out, you know. And I thought I had studied, you know, because and the very first day of the police academy, you know, it was very festive. They had the cameras there, and everybody was doing some push-ups and jumping jacks. We're really going to do this, and it was, you know, it was a big deal, and it was on the news, you know. But my very first test, you know, I told you I wasn't that good of a student. I had gotten a 62. I'm well, oh man. Well, you know, one thing I had established already that I was good, great at flunking. I was great at not passing academically. And I, you know, I made this commitment that I'm going to pass this. Only way I'm going to come out of here, either I'm going to pass or I'm going to come out in a stretcher, your belly up or something. And so some people could like I think Roger Marvin is a person who can read a book like this and they fully comprehend it. You know, I had to go take a test and ace it. For me, I had to study 3 times harder than everybody. You know, I stayed up and I said, I'm gonna study this shit till my ears bleed. You know? And I'd wake up till I stay up like 3 in the morning. Man, I ain't fun, you know, like when I was boxing, I tell myself, and we skipped over that, I ain't getting this ass whooping. This is one ass whooping I ain't gonna get. And so, operating on that frequency, I studied, I stayed with that stuff. And, you know, about the time we got through that, I had worked my way up to about the middle of the class, and I passed, and I survived the police academy, and
no, the police academy you had to do probation after that. Your book really deals with that whole process of the testing, the probation, writing with, you have a great chapter in there about roll call, some of the things that the other police officers would say to you.
One guy in particular had a particularly, there's no other way to say it, but he was a white supremacist. And he made it his life mission to say something derogatory every single day. And you had to hold back your anger. And you said it, that growing up, there were some things that you could really do. I think you said you loved to run. You could running, jumping, climbing, burning, writing, and fighting.
It was God's gift.
And that fighting was something that you could do perhaps as good as, if not better than anybody your size and twice your size.
I could have been somebody. I could have been a contender.
Your first, and throughout your naval career, you fought, you had to take on people twice your size to fight. And here you are now in your chosen life work, and somebody would come in there and every day would say some of the most derogatory things imaginable that you repeat in your book. And you couldn't do anything, but you had to just hold in. And you said one day maybe, but not right now. Not now. Which was an amazing thing.
Well, let me touch on that. So I'm a new guy, and so I'm on probation where we completed the police academy, so now we're out on the street under intense supervision. So I'm trying to be the new guy. I'm kind of, hey, my name's Melvin Carter, and what's your name? Yeah, I'm Melvin Carter.
How do you?
So I'm a new guy. I'm a puppy dog. My name's Melvin Carter. What's your name? And I went up to this guy, and he just stands there and stares at me. We tolerated him down at me like with extreme disgust. And so I had some coffee in my hand. He takes some coffee out of his mouth, and drops my coffee, and says the N-word. Now my practice before that was to stop that word before it got to the second G. You know, when somebody said it to me. And so anyway, so now, you know, all my issues are bubbling up, and so I got, and then he pushed me from behind. You know, oh man, I mean, I can tell you how bad I wanted to retaliate, but it would probably sound obscene. You know, so anyway, I had to promise myself, no Melvin, no down boy. And so I had to get, so I had to promise myself I'm gonna get it. Well, you know, we'll come to find out, you know, they knew I had these issues, you know, because you know, you got the psychological evaluation. All you had to do was taunt me, and I'll retaliate. You know, I mean, that was on my profile, and so he was baiting me, you know, and what come to pass that, you know, this dude was really willing to take an ass whooping to get me fired. You know, it was a trap, and so anyway, time happened, and so that was the game that people was always trying to figure out how to make you not continue. And but you know, I believe that cause and effect, what goes around comes around. Something happened to him later down the line, and I didn't have to do anything. And he had gotten fired for some ridiculous stuff. And I'm like, I've never gotten. But you know, I think God had sense. I mean, I think God had better sense than I did, so got him out of my reach. You know? And so stuff like that happened.
There was a passage in your book, a chapter in your book where most people would have two in a car, and yet no one would ride with you. You had to be on your own, and that there was an opportunity that you were told that there was a pursuit on I-94 or 35W. You went in by yourself. You were helping some other.
I took their call.
You took their call.
Yeah.
And then tell us about that call, because it was just amazing.
Well, that was kind of a turning point to me too, because the sector was divided into A1, A2, and A3. I was in what they called A3, extreme east side, you know, and that was back when there were no black people on the east side at all, except for me. And a squad from our A3 got sent to some place over here. A robbery had happened, and they took some stuff, and they were getting away. Well, I followed the car down. I came as as an assisting squad. They were the main squad. And as assisting squad, I show up and I got them in my sights. I have visual contact, and I finally wind up stopping them when they stopped on the freeway. And so it's a car full of guys. They get out. I'm by myself, and they come back at me, and you know, I got this sense of humor, and for some reason I'm laughing but I could see that they were trying to surround me, and so I'm calling for, where's my backup? They said, we're at lunch. You know, and so I said, at lunch. And so I'm actually laughing, you know, because I, you know, every day before I go to work, I get in the mirror and give myself a lecture. I will survive. I will survive. And every time I say that, I put the accent on each word different times. I shall survive. I shall survive. I shall survive. And I get that at all costs. So I knew that wasn't going to happen to me. I knew that these guys were some bad about to happen to them. You know, more likely. But anyway, I said, you guys are at lunch? Who sent you the, you know, whatever it was. And so it was a non-event. Nothing happened. We got them packaged up. Nobody got hurt. And so we got everything. And so Sergeant, I call him Sergeant Intellect. He comes catch me. He always talk to you like this. You know, So he said, Carter, come in this room. I come in there, and he says, Carter, I didn't like your tone of voice when you said, ask for some backup. What? So I'm sorry, I didn't mean it.
You mean it.
And then like, you know, like my tone of voice, well, you know, it was almost funny. Like my tone of voice, I'm out here under, you know, something bad about to happen. I'm calling some backup, these guys at the lunch, and you gonna make an issue out of me. Not like my tone of voice, yeah, Carter, because other people listening, they might not like it either. So now, all my issues are subtle. So this might not be the kind of thing you want to hear about in public, but now I'm gargling at the mouth. So I go to work the next day, and I do apologize to may I use the language I use? Give me a no.
Go ahead.
Because I'm just telling you what happened.
You're good.
The next day, wrote, you know, Sergeant, I call him Sergeant Intellect. He said, okay, listen up, everybody. Yesterday we had a little problem, but it's settled now, it's over. I said, no, it ain't. No, it ain't. I said, and so the guy that you talking about with the snide remarks, he said, I've been over here 3 years. When I first came over here, you blanks tried to bury me then. And yes, last night you tried to bury me again. And I said, whenever you say those things about me and I don't acknowledge, it ain't because I don't understand. It ain't because I don't get it. Because everybody else in there is taller than me. I got up in the chair and I said, because all you guys can kiss my blankety blank. And so one of the guys down here who I went to one of the lunch guys, he stands up and he says, Carter, I swear to God, I never backed you and I never will. And I'm like, it looked like he's reaching for something to me, you know, because couldn't nobody outshoot me. I was top shot everywhere I went, you know. And so it looked like it was going to come to that, you know, and old Sergeant Intellect. Now, guys, I came to work the next day, and I was transferred to a different place. I came to work the next day. Carter, you're out of here. You're over in A2 now. That's another story.
Not only were you in A2, but you were a soloist, you were in A2, they put you in juvenile, they put you in all over the St. Paul Police Department because they had this internal thing going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of internal stuff.
A lot of internal stuff going on, but what role did your family play? You had met Tony by then. Mm-hmm. You had your daughter, Anika, by then. Mm-hmm. Did that have an effect upon the way in which you would control some of that anger, the fact that you had this family?
Yeah, well, it's a multifaceted thing because, you know, I had messed up a whole lot of things, but parenthood was going to be the one thing that I was never going to mess up. Family was the thing I was determined not to mess up. And so one of the things I could do was kind of build my Wonderland, for my Disney World, Wonderland, Mickey Mouse World for my kids. And I could come home and find some shelter in it. You know, I could come home and play for the hide for the world. One of the best laughs I ever had, you know, because I got hurt on one thing and I had a back problem. So I'm laying on my back, belly up, watching television. And I got this back up. And it was really relaxing for my oldest daughter. My youngest daughter wasn't born yet.
my oldest daughter and my son, they'd be crawling all over me, and I'd be trying to sleep. It was therapeutic for me, you know. It was how I kind of recharged. And one day I had come home, and my daughter and my son, they were toddlers about the same time. They crawled all over me, and Melvin put his mouth on my mouth. I thought he was giving me a kiss, and he had spirit all over my face. and my daughter, who was gotten on my chest, was giving me compressions. And my wife sitting up in the chair, and I said, "I didn't give me CPR." and when I found out they were giving me, they had some CPR seen on television. I had to spit all in my ears. I found shelter in the very shelter that I gave my children. But they were really supportive, and my wife was extremely supportive, you know, and I can't thank her enough, you know, for sticking with me through some of that stuff.
Your record at the St. Paul Police Department, 28 years, there was a little break there, but you set records there, physical records. You were a sharpshooter. You had the highest sharpshooting score. You lifted twice your weight, 355 pounds.
It's in the book.
It's in the book. You got to read this in the book. It's the fact that...
But may I point out something?
Yeah, sure.
You know, when I bench pressed 355 pounds over twice my body weight, I was in my 50s, and that was after I began to weaken. But I hate to brag.
So we're going to keep moving because we want to try to get some time for questions. So we've gone through Rondo, we've gone through your turning point, we've gone through the Navy, we've gone through the police academy. Your retirement came up in the police academy, but right after retirement, there's another really significant part of your career, your public life, and that's the group called Save Our Sons. And tell us a little bit about that.
In order to tell this story, I must tell a little story.
Okay.
And this is can I tell you about my favorite arrest? I'm asking you guys. Yeah. So, it was the night before Christmas. And all through the neighborhood, not a creature was stirring, but maybe some mice. But I got a call from my mother, and I knew the son because I'm one of the few cops who lived in the neighborhood where I policed and stayed there. Everybody knew where I lived. And because I was from there, I wound up becoming this tremendous resources from one of the families that we had a lot of issues and trouble. And this kid was pretty dangerous. And so the mother called me up and said, Melvin, and I'm going to call him Bruce for the sake of conversation. She said, my Bruce is on the run, and I know he's going to get caught, and I want you to get him. I want you to be the one to arrest him. Now, I'm going to leave, if he's here, I'm going to leave the Christmas lights on. If you come by here at 11 o'clock Christmas Eve, after the lights are on, that means he's in there. I'm going to leave the side door open, come in, side door, walk through the kitchen, go down the stairs, and he's going to be down there. So I said, okay, I'm a supervisor. I'm a main sergeant. And so I had the squad surround the place. And so I know he's dangerous. I know he's armed. And I need the element of surprise, you know. So I open the door. And I enter into the door. Shut it so it didn't slam. Open the door, and slowly I crept, inch by inch, step by step, and across the kitchen floor. And there's the door going down to the basement. You ever try to trip down some basement stairs? No stair steps to the basement are silent, are they? and so he's down there, and I'm going, Bruce, step away from that gun. Put your joint down. And come here and give me a hug. You know. So he's going like this. And then I'm doing this here with him. You know? and so he puts the joint down, and he steps away. You know, I wedged myself between where the gun was, and he puts it down on my chest, and we embrace. And the mom comes out, we have a group hug.
I just happened to have a fine pair of jewelry on me. So I put the handcuffs on him and got him all in jail. Now, instantly, he did get killed in a house robbery a couple years later, but he survived that night. But that was kind of a thing that mothers would call me on. Mothers knew when their sons were going to have shootouts, this drive-by stuff first happened, and they would call me. And so I'd be like, I'd come down there and I'd be negotiating, like, okay, you guys, I'm not going to have this, and so I'm going to make sure that they would be willing to stop, and you guys stop, okay? So I remember the next house is, okay, now, blah, 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 and so the shootout's supposed to be, the drive-by is supposed to be tonight at 7 o'clock up on Central and St. Albans. Now I'm going to be there, Anybody show up with a gun, I'm going to think they're shooting at me, And plus I could use my police badge as some leverage, because if I got something on you and you're going to shoot out tonight, I could take some official action. And so stuff like that. So mothers would call me, and because their son was in trouble, and oftentimes I was able to be a tremendous resource. One particular guy, his name is David Martin. He was a high roller, and so I started calling my home business night raids, and so the gangsters, well, I'm a compulsive, obsessive mentor anyway. I'm a serial mentor. I'll stalk guys. I'll stalk the gangsters just to mentor them. And so David, according to David Martin, if you're selling illegal stuff and you got some illegal stuff under the bed, that's the thing you want to see when you wake up, looking at you in your bedroom as a detective, a police detective, wake up, wake up. And so now, very quickly, the David Martin story is that, there's a lot of people I mentor, I call them my torture victims. And some of my technique is more like browbeating, And so anyway, David Martin survived that. Next thing you know, he's going to college. Next thing you know, he winds up going to prison. He goes to prison like 4 years or so, and he calls, he writes me, I'm livid because I'm trying to keep you out of it. Don't go to prison and call me up and tell me how much. I don't want to know how much you learned, But he was sending me letters. Now I'm in prison, he's telling me how much you learned. So it's a Friday night. David had been in prison for like almost 5 years. He called me up. I'm getting out. He's in some federal prison in Detroit someplace, or Michigan someplace. And it was Friday night. He said, I need a job. And so I called Russell Ballinger. And me and Russell, you know David Martin?
Yeah.
You know the story?
No.
But anyway, next thing, the short of the story is that he starts going to school, and he starts getting in school, and then next thing he goes to law school. And next thing you know, he got 2 law degrees because he got a special hearing. He had to have a special hearing to practice law. So I couldn't be in town during the time that he had the special hearing, but they had prearranged that I testify on his behalf. Mr. Carter, stand with his right hand, repeat after me. Mr. Carter's right hand, repeat it. You swear to tell the truth, a bunch of truth, blah, blah. Yep. Little did I know that his family could hear everything I could say. According to them, after it's been taking 20 minutes after I testified on his behalf, that he's now able to practice law without restriction. But he's just kind of our poster child. A lot of guys that we mentor are just doing okay. I'm having a big fundraiser May 31st over at Gail and Ian's house, and you'll see some of the men that I mentor. And Ice Johnson, who's another one of my mentees, he's going to be speaking. He's got a master's degree. He's one of the most dangerous. Do you know Ice? Yeah. At one point in time, he's one of the most dangerous criminal gangsters I've ever confronted. I tell him, man, you can't come around here jumping on people like you've been doing. He said, we just want to kill him. I knew he had death on him, and he did get riddled with gunfire at some point. He went down to Georgia, got arrested, and they had him dead in the sights. They caught him with enough to give him, and they were about ready to give him 30 years. And then, according to his story, God came and he was caged and talking to him, okay, I'm going to give you one more chance. One more chance. And so he said, next thing you know, he had beat the rap on some technicality. Next thing you know, he called me up, Mr. Carter, take me back. And so now he's a property owner, he's a voter. He got it. We helped him get his expungement stuff happening, you know. And now, and he's got a master's degree. And so you'll meet him at my fundraiser, May 31st. Please be there. That's
Now,
all.
this is the story of Dieselhart, Melvin's childhood, his maturation as a community leader, as a father, as a hero from the St. Paul Police Department. And the book is available here in the back, and I would tell you that there is something about this book that once you can't put it down. And Melvin, in the few minutes before we stop for questions, what does your family think of your writing?
None of my family read it. Well, my wife, she said, well, one night, I mean, because some of it's funny.
Yeah.
And,
Very funny.
And then I was sleeping one night, and I hear this hysterical laughing coming from the kitchen. And my wife was reading one part of it, and it was the part when I first met Huff, you know, because Huff was kind of like a member of our family. Huff thinks he can sing, and he was in the shower singing, and I didn't know him, and I yelled something like, "Man, shut the F up," you know, and so he wipes soap from his face, and he said, "You must be that effing Carter, the one they call that effing Carter. They told me about you. They told me to stay away from that effing Carter." And what's the question?
What is it like to be a writer? I mean, what does it look like to have a successful book?
It's wonderful. You know, I talk about some tough stuff, and it's wonderful that it means something. You know, it's one thing to go through a whole lot of torturous stuff and don't mean nothing, or not know if it means anything to anybody, but it feels as though I went through all this stuff for a purpose, and being able to survive this and being able to spend time with loved ones that are gone, being able to go back and get some laughs, go back and maybe give a couple of sheep shots to some adversaries, you know, it's almost vindictive.
Do you have, are you working on any other books at this time?
Yes.
Can you tell us about it quickly?
You guys promise not to tell anybody?
Not a word.
All right. Well, I mentioned it to you.
Right.
And so have you guys seen the story that, you know, I have a sidekick, or I might be his sidekick. I call him Fatso in the story. And he's not fat at all. He's kind of tall, kind of skinny, kind of athletic. But it's kind of take off a medium. And it's a fantasy kind of a thing where we go into the woods and run away from home, go into the woods and meet a guy who happens to be the younger brother of a Nazi hunter. And the Nazi hunter is a young lady, but she's captured by the people that she had been chasing, and she's on the big boat on the Mississippi River. And, you know, because Mississippi, the rivers and the trains are kind of close together. So this boat in this river is waiting for the shipment to come with some artifacts from World War II. And so the boys get together, and they got like 3 days to rescue his big sister. You know, because when the shipment comes in from stolen artifacts from World War II, you know, this ship is going to heading for Argentina someplace. And the boy never see his sister again, so me and Fatso are going to help him.
Is this your next book?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all fantasy. But
It wasn't the last chapter.
so right now, our 2 heroes are in the head of a heap of danger right now.
And Melvin, your last question. Who's going to play you when your book becomes a movie?
You guys know who Michael B. Jordan is? He played the villain in Black Panther. Yeah, I think I'm gonna give him an audition.
Any last question? Any final thoughts, Melvin, before we open up for questions? Do you want to?
Well, I want to thank you because, you know, because I didn't even know that he had read the thing. Next thing you know, he wrote a wonderful forward on it, and you know, because Roger, you know, he's a serious person, and I figured, given the feedback he gave me, I figured it must be as good as I thought it was. So please give Roger.
We have
have about 10 minutes. For anybody have a question, we have 10 minutes before we have to move. Yes, go ahead.
I have a question and a comment, I guess. Reading the book and seeing the different variables and complex situations that you find yourself in with racism and having the audience that you have that's reading this book, I feel like I see like differences in people because like it gave me a chance to view things that I went through as an adolescent and being a mentor of yours, and as well I got to see how it affected like our white counterparts. It sort of like opened up you guys' mind to see what those situations could be like, you know, and I felt that, you know, for it to have that good of expansion in that range, you know, I found that amazing, and that you were able to tell the whole truth and then not offend any of your white constituents. You know,
Now somebody must be offended here, right?
I didn't see that, you know, when and I've asked people questions about the book and I just found that amazing, you know, because sometimes I find myself in a situation where I tell some truths that, and I be viewed as racist, you know, for telling the truth of what I see that exists in society, you know, and then people are like, no, you sound like a racist, and I'm like, well, I'm just telling what I see. And it offends some people. You were able to tell your story, but still not have that negative effect. It was just all positive, you know.
Yeah, very much so, very much so. Any other question and comment? Yes?
Tell me what makes you a serial mentor.
Well, you can see how mixed up I was as a kid. And I'm watching my dad, and I have to give Mr. Nins, who was my mentor, and a shout out, and Mr. Mann, and some of the, you know, and Mr. Cotton, the football coach, you know. I mean, and then there's one guy in the story when I was having kind of a court-martial kind of situation, a warrant officer Lear. Anybody remember him? So I'm standing up there at this court-martial situation, getting ready to be a martyr go down for my cause. You know, I could hear the drums. They didn't have it, but I could hear it. You know, I'm ready. I got my tough guy snarl on, you know, and the captain said, "Carter, I told you that if I see you again." And so just before sentencing, the Captain Feaster said, "Does anybody got, before I give the sentence, does anybody got anything to say?" And all of a sudden, this Irish guy, Mr. Warrant Officer, and in the military, warrant officers have a heck of a lot of leverage. And Warrant Officer here steps forward and said, "Yeah," and he started saying all these glowing things about me, about how hard I worked and how a good shipmate I was, and glowing stuff. I'm like, what? You know, me? and man, you blowing my martyrdom, baby. You know. And so anyway, so I was able to eke out a honorable discharge out of that, you know. And so, you know, the generation before me came to my rescue. You know, and they're able to make me see how I messed up and make me not to make that same mistake again. You know, not to you know, commit that same act again and learn from my mistakes. And so I know how important it is.
A couple more questions. Yes.
Go ahead, you want it? Go ahead.
Oh, you go.
I have kind of a comment.
My kid brother here, buddy.
I was there during that growing up period. One of the things I'm hearing, I saw the change actually in Melvin. Melvin, he had that trouble side. He had a really short wick as a kid. I mean, it was like you said, before you got through the end, if you said something, that a hand would just spring out. Literally, he would have us fighting in the front yard with your friends. They'd come over, him and Fatso and all those guys, they'd be boxing in the front yard. They'd be fighting, and then they'd get into that thing with the put the chip on your shoulder, knock it off, and all that stuff. And then I remember the guys, his friends and all those guys riding the motorcycles and the characters. But I think the thing that comes to mind to me is that the change, when the real change I saw. We had a double homicide in the family, and those guys were they were our family. They were our, I don't know if you guys ever had cousins where you see, when they see them, your teeth just get this big and they're just so special. And
They're our only cousins.
they were, they were the big guys. They were the guys. They had a step. Remember the boys walk?
Yeah.
The whole group there. But we had the double homicide that time. And during that period of time, it was a tornado that came through within a span of probably a year or two. My brother's best friend that got stabbed to death, Dennis. And then Henry and Gregory, the double homicide. But the magic thing happened during that period of time too, was Melvin met his wife, Tony. She wasn't his wife yet. So there were a lot of powerful forces that I saw that were in place at that time. I had no idea that they were going to get married, but I knew that she was different than everyone else because Melvin had changed. But I remember him running out of the funeral home after not the funeral home where we had the service. And he disappeared for a while. And this was about the time you had gone for you were going to try out for the fire department.
Both of them.
That had come up, and
Both of them. Whichever one
and
came
all
up.
this happened at the same time. All this happened at the same time. I remember you walking out, running out of there with your, like this, and I was like, well, where's he gone? And he just disappeared for a couple of days, and then next thing I knew, you were going to be a police officer. So I'm seeing it from a different perspective. But those things had taken place, but he had, as angry and short-tempered as Melvin was, because he was extremely compassionate if he got the chance. But I mean, he got in one fight that lasted from, I don't know, from sun up to sundown. It seemed like, and they were, in those days when those guys got in fights, you had a crowd of ooh, 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 and all that stuff. And then I think my Aunt Rhoda, the guys who had it up, came out there with a bat. She came out there with a bat and broke it up.
A plastic bat.
A plastic bat. Melvin came running in, waking me up. I didn't know. I found out about this later on. He came in that night, waking me up out of my sleep. Look at this, man. Look at this. I was like, what? He had a black eye and blood on his head. I won, man. I won. You should have seen it. I was like, I'm used to my brother. Man, okay. I gotta go to sleep, but like I said, the important thing was the change. And then he is a compassionate, because he still tries to mother me today. The first thing he said when my mother passed away, I'm your mommy now. And then we had another fight.
So you have the last question.
I was just wondering how long it took before you got somebody to ride in the squad car with you.
Well, at first they forced people to ride with me
Oh, okay.
for a long time, and then eventually they started refusing. And it got to the place where I really didn't want to ride because I was pretty good at domestics, and I could come to people's house with respect, and I was coming with the common effect. So that's the thing, you needed somebody going there. What the hell is going on here? By the
You better
time,
ride your own.
yeah. So, and I wound up in some emergency rooms a few times behind that, I really, but as I got seasoned, I really hated having a partner. Thanks.
Let's give Melvin Carter. Books are in the back, and there's a discount available tonight if you want to pick up. And Melvin has agreed to autograph your copy.
I got my good pen.
How are y'all? Pretty good. How you doing? Long time no see.